The Theiceman via audizine asked, "Hey Paul, just curious, is it the same tune for B8 and B8.5? Do you know the reason I asked is I got a unitronic tune on my B8.5 some time ago. I didn't really feel any difference. I was wondering if I got the wrong file or if it is the same tune. Would you notice the difference if you were running a B8.5 A4 already?"
Okay, so there's a couple things to unpack with this one. First, not noticing a tune. That's pretty uncommon. Pretty much any turbo car, when you tune it, it's going to have a pretty significant impact. So there's two thoughts I have in regards to that, and then we'll go towards the rest of the question. First, whenever you buy a used car, there's a possibility that your car has already been tuned. That's certainly a possibility. And then when you go to a new tune, it's potentially a problem that you put a software on there, but you already had software, so you're not feeling a difference. The other thing, and I've seen this commonly with people who are not super familiar with turbo cars, is the way they drive them. So if somebody's not familiar with a turbo car, turbos are load demand based. So they only are going to give you boost in the event that you're giving it the demand for boost. So if you drive it just kind of putt around town and you don't kind of mash that pedal to the floor, you may not actually notice the difference because you're kind of just doing a moderate throttle input and moderate acceleration, and that's why it's not giving you that big bump in power, because you're not engaging the turbo enough, which is the reason why. And I've heard that before, and I've kind of seen people who drove turbo cars who would, first of all, short shift. If it was a manual car, I've seen some people who would shift at very bizarre RPMs in the like 2,000, 2,500 range, and your turbo is barely even getting going by that point, and then you're wondering why it's not making enough power. Is because you basically have choked off the turbo by shifting before you've even given it the ability to make power. So that's a couple things I've seen with just depending on driving style and people who aren't familiar with it, that could be part of the deal. But in terms of not feeling it, I would be pretty blown away if that's the case. Now, if you do think you have a problem of some kind, number one, you could have a boost leak. That's certainly possible. If that's the case, I did a video talking about how to monitor boost leaks with an OBD11 a long time ago. We'll link to that in the description. And you also could have something else going on with the car that's creating this problem. So the other thing that is going to be a scenario where to address that with unitronic, to say, hey, this tune doesn't feel like anything, what they're going to ask you to do is data log. So they're going to give you like kind of a pre-set up file for VAGCOM that they have multiple channels already set up. You can data log, send them that information. They can determine if there's something going on in the background that maybe you're not aware of in terms of the software side of things. So that is something that they would ask for if you approach them and said, hey, my tune doesn't feel like it's working. They're going to ask you for that information so that they have empirical evidence to see if it's functioning the way it's intended to be functioning based on the way they've programmed their software. Yeah, so the other thing, the last point I wanted to touch on was talking about the new files versus the old files. So the way we catalog our site with tunes is basically just by engine so that it's applicable. It basically, the way we set it up is based on cost. That has nothing to do with how it's actually implemented on the unitronic side. It's way more complicated than that. Unitronic and software tuners in general, they are applying software based on a specific software revision and part number inside the ECU of the vehicle. So we did a video a while back talking about box code info of ECUs that we would need in certain circumstances, especially if you're wondering if there's a tune available for your car specifically. You would need to give us this information so that we could actually dig in to know 100%. This is most commonly on newer cars, to know if there's a file for that car. So that information is how it's determined. So there's actually no designation between a newer car and an older car. It's based on ECU ID information, software level, and all that type of stuff. And that's how it determines the specific tune for your car, which is why sometimes people want pops and bang tunes, but this file doesn't have it and this one does. And maybe for their specific vehicle, because it's a kind of an outlier in terms of how common it is, they may not have that particular file for that particular engine that's in that car. So hopefully that helps kind of shed some light on all of that, and hopefully you can address your issue.